I made a pact with a monster to destroy the men who burned my world, but the price he demanded was not my blood or my servitude. It was me, all of me, and I did not yet understand what that meant. The smoke still clung to my hair when I crossed the River Black. 3 days had passed since the flames took everything, since the screams of my grandmother faded into the roar of the fire, since the men of Valdrin rode away laughing with torches still warm in their hands. I had hidden in the frozen creek bed, water soaking through my dress until my bones ached, watching my entire life turn to ash and ember. They called her a witch. They called me her creature. And when the dawn came gray and silent, I crawled from the ice with nothing but the clothes on my back and a hunger in my chest that felt like swallowing glass. I walked north because the stories said death waited there. The forest of Vargr, where no hunter returned unchanged, where the trees grew so thick that sunlight became a memory, and the snow fell black with ancient soot. The villagers whispered of a king who ruled those shadows, a being neither man nor beast, but something torn between both worlds, cursed or blessed depending on who told the tale. Fenris, they called him, the wolf who walks, the alpha of alphas. I did not care if he was demon or god. I only knew that I needed power I did not possess, and I was willing to pay any price to see Valdrin burn the way my home had burned. The cold deepened as I climbed the ridge beyond the river. My fingers had long since gone numb, my lips cracked and bleeding, my thoughts reduced to the simple rhythm of one foot before the other. The pines here grew twisted, their branches heavy with frost, their trunks scarred by claw marks larger than my hand. I should have been afraid. Perhaps I was, somewhere beneath the grief that had swallowed everything else. But fear felt distant now, like a sound heard through deep water, and I pressed forward into the gathering dark. I smelled the wolves before I saw them, a musk of fir and pine and something older, something that made the hair rise on my arms despite the numbness. Then the eyes appeared, amber and gold, floating in the shadows between the trees. I stopped walking. My heart should have raced, but instead it slowed, steadied, as if my body understood something my mind had not yet grasped. The wolves emerged one by one, gray and white and silver, their breath pluming in the frozen air. They did not growl. They did not advance. They simply watched, and in their watching, I felt the weight of judgment. Then he came. I had expected a beast. I had expected fangs and fur, a creature of nightmare-given form. But Fenris was something else entirely, something my stories had not prepared me for. He walked upright as a man walks, tall and broad-shouldered, his skin pale as birch bark, where it showed beneath the dark furs draped across his frame. But his eyes were wolf eyes, amber burning with an inner fire, and his hands ended in claws that gleamed like polished bone. His face was angular, beautiful in the way a blade is beautiful, and when he smiled I saw teeth that were not quite human, sharp and white and knowing. He was both things at once, man and wolf woven together into something new, something that should not exist, but did, undeniably, terribly did. "You smell of smoke and sorrow," he said, and his voice was low and rough, like stones grinding beneath deep water. "You smell of vengeance." I lifted my chin despite the trembling in my legs. "I have come to make a bargain." His wolves shifted around us, a living wall of fur and watchful eyes. Fenris tilted his head, studying me with an expression I could not read. "And what does a burned girl have to offer a king?" "My service," I said. "My loyalty. Whatever you want." He moved closer, and I forced myself not to step back. He circled me slowly, nostrils flaring, and I felt his gaze like a physical touch, tracing the soot stains on my skin, the hollows beneath my eyes, the desperation I could not hide. When he spoke again, his breath was warm against my ear. "I do not want your service, little mourner. I do not want your loyalty. Those are things freely broken, easily forgotten." He paused, and I felt one clawed finger trace the line of my jaw, gentle as a whisper. What I want is you. Your presence in my territory. Your hands to heal my wounded. Your voice to speak for my kind when the hunters come. You will belong to the forest now, to me, and you will never return to the world that cast you out. I swallowed hard. And my vengeance? His smile widened. The men who burned your home will know fear before they die. This I promise. But you must understand what you are agreeing to. You will not be my prisoner, but you will not be free. You will walk between worlds, belonging fully to neither. The village will call you monster. The wolves will call you strange. And I? He leaned closer, his amber eyes filling my vision. I will call you mine. I thought of my grandmother, her gentle hands braiding my hair, her soft voice teaching me the names of healing herbs. I thought of the flames reflected in the eyes of the men who killed her, their laughter echoing across the snow. I thought of the girl I had been 3 days ago, before the world revealed its cruelty, and I let her go. I accept, I whispered. Something shifted in the air between us, something that felt like a door closing and another opening. Fenris stepped back, and when he extended his clawed hand, I took it without hesitation. His grip was warm despite the cold, his skin rougher than any human touch. And when he turned to lead me deeper into the forest, the wolves parted before us like water around stone. The den was not what I expected. I had imagined caves and darkness, primitive and brutal. But the place Fenris called home was something else entirely. Built into the heart of an ancient hill, the walls were smooth stone hung with preserved pelts and dried herbs, the floor covered in soft furs that held the warmth of bodies long departed. A fire burned in a central pit, its smoke rising through a natural chimney in the rock above, and around its edges I saw the implements of a life lived close to the earth. Bowls of carved wood, blades of sharpened bone, bundles of roots and leaves that I recognized from my grandmother's teachings. You will sleep here, Fenris said, gesturing to an alcove set apart from the main chamber. You will eat what we eat. You will learn our ways. And when the snow melts, we will discuss your vengeance. I wanted to argue, to demand that he act now while my rage still burned hot, but exhaustion crashed over me like a wave, and I found I could barely stand. Fenris caught me before I fell, his arms stronger than I expected, and he carried me to the alcove without a word. The furs were soft beneath my back. The fire was warm against my skin. And despite everything, despite the grief and the fear and the strangeness of this place, I slept. The weeks that followed taught me a new language of survival. I learned to move through the forest as the wolves moved, silent and watchful, reading the tracks in the snow and the messages written in broken branches. I learned which herbs grew beneath the frost, which roots could cure infection, which berries would stop bleeding and which would stop a heart. I learned the wolves themselves, their hierarchies and their affections, the way they communicated through posture and sound and the subtle pressure of a muzzle against a flank. And always, in everything, I learned Fenris. He was not cruel. This surprised me more than anything, this gentleness in a creature built for violence. He brought me food when the hunting was good and sat with me in silence when the grief rose up and threatened to drown me. He told me stories of the forest, of the spirits that dwelt in the ancient trees and the pacts that bound his kind to this land. He showed me the sacred cave where his ancestors were born, where the walls were painted with images of wolves and humans walking together. And he spoke of a time before the hatred, before the hunters, when his people and mine had lived in something like peace. But he also showed me his scars, the long white line that curved from his shoulder to his hip, gift of a hunter's silver blade, the puckered marks on his back where arrows had found their home, the way his left ear was torn, the way his hands sometimes trembled when the moon was full, as if the violence that made him fought always to break free. He was ancient in ways I could not fathom, had seen generations of humans rise and fall, had buried more of his wolves than he could count. And in his amber eyes I saw a loneliness that matched my own, a creature caught between worlds, belonging fully to neither. I began to understand why he had asked for me instead of my service. He did not need a servant. He needed a witness, someone to see him as he truly was, neither monster nor god, but something wounded and enduring, still fighting to protect what remained of his dying world. Winter deepened, and the hunters came. I smelled them before the wolves did. The foreign stench of iron and smoke that did not belong to this place. I was gathering yarrow near the frozen stream when the first sounds reached me. Voices raised in argument, the crunch of many boots through snow. I dropped the herbs and ran, my heart pounding against my ribs, and when I burst into the den, Fenris was already standing, his body tensed, his claws extended. "How many?" he asked. I shook my head. "I do not know." But I recognized the voices. They were the same voices that had laughed while my grandmother burned. Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. "Then it is time." I had dreamed of this moment for months. I had nurtured my hatred like a flame, feeding it with memories of smoke and screams, imagining the terror on their faces when justice finally found them. But now that it was here, now that Fenris moved toward the entrance with murder in his stride, I felt something unexpected rise in my chest. "Wait," I said. He turned, surprise breaking through his predatory focus. "You would spare them? After what they did?" "No." I stepped closer, my hands shaking but my voice steady. "But I want to understand something first. If you kill them all, what happens then? More hunters will come. More villages will send their men with silver and fire. The hatred will grow and grow and grow until there is nothing left of your forest or your wolves." Fenris was silent for a long moment. His wolves had gathered around us, a sea of fur and watchful eyes, and I felt their tension like a physical weight. Finally, he spoke. "What would you have me do, little mourner? Show them mercy they never showed you?" I thought of my grandmother again, but this time I did not think of her death. I thought of her life, of the way she healed anyone who came to her door regardless of how they had treated her, of the quiet strength in her refusal to let hatred poison her heart. She had died for that kindness, yes, but she had also lived for it, and in her living she had taught me something I was only now beginning to understand. "Not mercy," I said. "Truth. Let me speak to them. Let me show them what I have seen here, what you truly are. If they still choose violence after that, then we will answer it. But give them the chance to choose differently." Fenris stared at me for what felt like eternity. Then, slowly, he nodded. The hunters had made camp at the edge of the sacred grove, their fires burning bright against the snow. There were 8 of them, hard-faced men with crossbows and silver-tipped spears, and at their head stood the one I remembered most vividly, Aldrich, the miller's son, whose torch had been the first to touch my grandmother's door. He saw me emerge from the trees and his face went pale, then red with rage. "The witch's creature," he spat. "We should have burned you with her." I kept walking, kept my hands visible, kept my voice calm despite the roaring in my ears. "I am not here to fight, Aldrich. I am here to talk." He laughed, an ugly sound. "Talk? With the beast's whore?" The insult washed over me like water. I had been called worse in the month since the fire, had called myself worse in the dark hours of the night. But I was no longer the burned girl who had crawled from the frozen creek. I was something else now, something forged in the wilderness, and I would not be broken by the words of small men. "I have lived among them," I said, pitching my voice to carry to all the hunters. "I have seen how they live, how they love, how they mourn their dead and care for their wounded. They are not the monsters your stories make them. They are creatures of this forest, as much a part of it as the trees and the rivers and the deer you hunt. And they have never, in all the years of their existence, burned a helpless old woman alive for the crime of knowing which herbs cure fever. Silence fell over the camp. I saw uncertainty flicker in some of the faces, doubt beginning to crack the foundations of their fear. But Aldrich's expression only hardened. "Pretty words," he said, raising his crossbow. "But I know what I saw. I saw your grandmother call lightning from a clear sky. I saw her curse my father's crops to wither in the field. She was evil, and you are evil, and the beasts you protect are evil. The only good any of you will ever do is dying." He aimed at my heart. I did not flinch. And in that moment, between one breath and the next, Fenris stepped from the shadows. He did not attack. He did not roar or threaten or bare his terrible teeth. He simply stood there, tall and strange and undeniably present, and let them see him. Let them see the intelligence in his amber eyes, the restraint in his clawed hands, the patient sorrow of a creature who had watched his world shrink generation by generation while humans spread like wildfire across the land. "I have killed men," Fenris said, and his voice carried the weight of centuries. "I have killed them when they came with silver and fire, when they slaughtered my wolves and burned my forests. I would be justified in killing you now. Your friend speaks of evil, but I remember when his grandfather led a raid into my territory and butchered a mother wolf and her pups for sport. I remember when his father poisoned our streams and trapped our young in iron jaws to die slowly in the snow. I remember every cruelty your kind has visited upon mine. And still I stand here, offering you a choice." Aldrich's crossbow trembled. I could see sweat beading on his brow despite the cold, could see the war playing out behind his eyes. And I understood then what my grandmother had always known, that hatred was a choice, renewed moment by moment, and that some people would choose it forever while others could still be reached. "We do not have to be enemies," I said softly. "There is room enough in this world for all of us, if we are willing to make it. My grandmother believed that. She died believing it, and I will not let her death mean nothing." The moment stretched, thin as spider silk. Then, slowly, Aldrich lowered his crossbow. He did not speak. He did not apologize or offer peace or acknowledge the horror of what he had done. But he lowered his weapon, and after a long moment, his men did the same. And when they turned and walked away into the snow, I felt something unknot in my chest, something that had been wound tight since the night of the fire. "They will be back," Fenris said quietly. "Perhaps not him, but others. The hatred does not end with one conversation." "I know," I replied, "but neither does hope." We stood together at the edge of the grove, hybrid king and burned girl, watching the hunters disappear into the white distance. The wolves emerged from the trees around us, pressing close, their warmth a comfort against the cold. And when Fenris took my hand, his claws gentle against my skin, I did not pull away. Spring came slowly to the forest of Vargr. The snow retreated inch by inch, revealing the dark earth beneath, and the first green shoots pushed through the frost like tiny declarations of faith. I had been with the wolves for nearly 4 months now, and the woman I saw reflected in the still pools of snowmelt was someone I barely recognized. Stronger, calmer, scarred in ways that did not show but that I felt with every breath. I had not forgotten my grandmother. I would never forget her, the sound of her voice, the smell of herbs on her hands, the way she had looked at me in those final moments before the fire separated us forever. But I had learned to carry that grief differently now, to let it fuel my purpose rather than consume my soul. I was the bridge she had always believed was possible, the proof that humans and wolves could coexist, and in honoring that calling I honored her memory more truly than vengeance ever could. Fenris found me at sunset, sitting on the ridge that overlooked the valley below. The light painted the snow in shades of gold and rose, and in the distance I could see smoke rising from the chimneys of Valdrin, the village that had cast me out. I did not hate them anymore. I pitied them, These people so consumed by fear that they would destroy anything they did not understand. And I hoped, with a hope that surprised me with its strength, that someday they might learn to see the world differently. "You are thinking deep thoughts," Fenris said, settling beside me. His fur-draped shoulder pressed against mine, and I leaned into his warmth without thinking. "I am thinking about belonging," I replied. "About what it means to find your place in a world that was not made for you." He was silent for a moment. Then he turned to me, his amber eyes soft in the fading light. "You belong here, Isolde. Not because I claimed you, not because of any bargain. You belong here because you chose to stay when you could have run. Because you saw us, truly saw us, and did not turn away." I felt tears prick at my eyes, but they were not tears of grief. "I spent so long believing I had nothing left," I whispered, "that the fire took everything. But it did not take me, and it did not take the choice of who I want to become." Fenris lifted his clawed hand and brushed a strand of hair from my face, the gesture achingly tender. "Who do you want to become?" I looked out at the valley, at the forest that had become my home, at the wolves who had become my family. I thought of my grandmother's gentleness, of Fenris's wounded strength, of the long, slow work of building something better from the ashes of what was lost. "Someone who heals," I said. "Someone who protects. Someone who stands between worlds and helps them understand each other." His smile was soft, almost human. "Then that is who you will be. And I will stand beside you, little mourner, for as long as the forest endures." The wolves began to howl as the sun dipped below the horizon, their voices rising in a chorus that shook the snow from the branches and echoed across the valley like a declaration of existence. I added my voice to theirs, small and human but no less fierce, and in that moment, I was not an exile or a victim or a bargaining chip in a desperate gamble. I was home. And in the sacred cave where Fenris's ancestors watched from painted walls, in the forest where the old magic still whispered through the roots of ancient trees, a new story was beginning. Not a story of vengeance or violence, but of the harder, braver work of building bridges across the chasms that divided us. I did not know if we would succeed. I did not know if the hatred that had burned for generations could ever truly be extinguished. But I knew that I would spend the rest of my life trying, with the wolves at my side and the memory of my grandmother's love lighting the way. The pact I had made in desperation had transformed into something I never expected. I had come seeking destruction, and I had found instead a reason to build. I had come seeking death, and I had found instead a way to truly live. The price Fenris demanded was myself, and in giving it, I discovered that I had never been more free. The forest breathed around me, ancient and patient, and in its depths the wolves ran wild and the spirits watched, and the world turned slowly toward spring. I ran with them now, this burned girl who had become something new, and the future stretched before me not as a threat, but as a promise. I had made a pact with a monster, and in doing so, I had finally found my home.